Good afternoon and welcome to today's New York City Council hearing for the Committee on Children and Youth. At this time, I would like to remind everyone to silence all electronic devices. Also, at this point, going forward, no one is to approach the dais. Chair Stevens, we're ready.
Good afternoon. I'm Councilman Althea Stevens, Chair of New York City Council Committee on Children and Youth. I want to thank everyone for joining us today for today's hearing on intro number 448, sponsored by myself, which would amend the New York City Charter in relation to the structure of the responsibilities of the Youth Board. The Youth Board plays an important role in advising the city on policy that affects young people and elevating prospective forums from across the sector that serve youth, including education, healthcare, social service, labor, and community-based organization. This legislation is intended to strengthen the role by modernizing the board structure and classifying the relationship with DYCD. Specifically, this bill would establish term limits for board members, reduce the size of the board from 28 to 18, and ensuring balanced appointments by both mayor and city council with representation from every borough. Those changes are designed to support a more focused, engaged, and effective advisory board while still maintaining board community representation and youth participation. This bill is to seek to improve the accountability engagement by formalizing the board's responsibilities to issue annual policies and legislative recommendations, and by requiring DYCD to respond in writing to each recommendation within 90 days. This reporting structure is intended to foster clear communication between the board and the agency to ensure that youth-informed recommendations receive meaningful consideration. Today's hearing is an opportunity to hear from DYCD, members of the Youth Board, advocates, and other stakeholders about how those process changes could work in practice and how we can best ensure that Youth Board remains a strong formal formation for advancing the welfare of young people across the city. I would like to thank the committee staff and their hard work preparing for this. Elizabeth Arts. I'm sorry, what's your name? Ria Ogasawao. I think I said that wrong, and I apologize. And my Chief of Staff and Deputy Chief of Staff, Tyreek and Greer, and the whole 18 back in the district. With that, I will turn it over to committee counsel to swear in the administration.
Good afternoon. We'll now be hearing testimony from the administration. Before we begin, I will administer the affirmation. Panelists, please raise your right hand. I will read the affirmation once and then call on each of you individually to respond. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before this committee, and to respond honestly to council member questions?
I do.
Thank you.
You may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Stevens and members of the Children and Youth Committee. I am Andrew Miller, Assistant Commissioner for External Relations. I am joined by Sarah Marks, Senior Director of Intergovernmental Affairs. We are pleased to be here to discuss the New York City Youth Board. The New York City Youth Board advises DYCD on the development of youth programs. The board is comprised of leaders from business, academia, government, foundations, and the nonprofit sector. There are currently 28 seats, and half of those are appointed upon recommendation of the City Council. As the Youth Bureau for the City of New York, DYCD is eligible to receive state funding from the Office of Children and Family Services. Currently, we receive funding that supports after-school programs, runaway and homeless youth, residential programs, and youth sports. State law requires that all county youth bureaus maintain a citizen youth board. New York City chose to permanently establish the youth board within the city charter to serve as a forum for representatives of the disciplines directly concerned with the welfare of youth. A well-functioning youth board is critical to the agency's ability to maintain its funding sources. As mandated by law, the full youth board convenes for meetings 4 times a year. A typical quarterly meeting includes a report from the DYCD commissioner or representative about the major agency initiatives, policies, and budget updates, and other changes since the previous meeting. Additionally, DYCD staff provide in-depth presentations about agency programs. In 2025, those topics included presentations on runaway and homeless youth, mental health, workforce development, and after-school programs. At each meeting, the board engages in robust discussions and provides valuable suggestions and support to DYCD. Board members also form working groups to look more deeply into relevant topics. In the past, working groups have included workforce development and provider relationships. Youth representation on the board is important, and currently there are 3 young people who actively participate in youth board meetings. In addition, the youth board includes members who have spent their careers in youth development and members with diverse backgrounds from the private sector. Members have provided valuable support to young people through their service on the youth board, often offering opportunities for young participants in our workforce programs, tours of workplaces and career panels, and spaces for special events. Board members have also promoted DYCD programs through social media, offered feedback on DYCD concept papers, and served as judges for special events. This introduction aims to restructure the composition of the board by decreasing the number of its members to 18, while increasing the proportion that the City Council may appoint. It also implements term limits and adds geographic requirements. This bill would also mandate 2 new annual reports, one from the board and one from DYCD. We have been discussing the bill with the committee staff and will be recommending amendments to satisfy the intent of the law by preserving DYCD's ability to continue to have a well-functioning youth board. Thanks once again for the opportunity to testify today, and we're pleased to take your questions.
At this time, I would like to acknowledge my colleagues, Dr. Deputy Speaker Natasha Williams and Councilmember Chiose. At this time, I have some questions. Can you describe the role of the youth board currently plays in supporting DYCD's work and informing the agency's policies and program decisions?
Absolutely. From a historical perspective, the youth board members have been front and center in advancing new initiatives and to give input to new program models and requests for proposals. For example, one current board member worked on building our current campus program over 20 years ago, which was then known as out of school time, and with a budget of $46 million. In the time since then, the system has flourished and has grown thanks to the council's support to $755 million. Most recently, they actually made recommendations around workforce, such as making the SYP application earlier, and that just opened last week, very early in time for the summer. They also talked about offering financial literacy components in all workforce programs, which we did implement. They also suggested driver's license for occupational pathways that require that, and we actually introduced a CDL program, which offers high-paying jobs. And I know that these are all initiatives strongly supported by this committee.
Intro 448 will require that the youth board submit an annual report that includes recommendations from DYCD. The department would then be required to respond to all the board recommendations in writings. How often does the youth board submit recommendations to DYCD, and how does DYCD currently engage with those recommendations?
Sure. We're in constant conversations with the youth board members. At each meeting where DYCD staff present information about ongoing programs, board members engage in a discussion with the staff, offering questions and suggestions. We are the folks that actually do the work with the youth board, and we do so in a variety of ways. The give and take of the board recommendations is an ongoing process that takes place throughout the year and during the concept paper for an RFP. This bill will actually formalize this process, which we can see the benefit of, but we want to make sure that we are taking into account our agency resources.
In the past, the department implemented a majority of the recommendations in the past, has the department implemented the majority of the recommendation by the youth board, or those instances where the department has not implemented the board's suggested changes?
Sure. Given the nature about how we receive the recommendations, the limitations of our contracting process and the funding of resources, we can't give an exact number of recommendations which have been implemented, but we gave the examples earlier about the CDL licenses, financial literacy, and the SYP application timeframe.
Prime example of, for me, and this is a question that you're probably not prepared for, but even thinking about us going into the RFP, the biggest RFP we've had in a number of years around after school programs, how did you engage with the youth board? Were they able to put any recommendations? Have they been in support of like even picking some of the providers? How were they implemented in some of that stuff? Were they implemented at all?
Well, they give us suggestions about what it should look like. We had the very robust feedback sessions about the RFP, which you actually participated in.
I know.
They helped us as well.
Okay. And so were they part of the feedback for the concept papers as well and things like that?
Yes.
She's giving you a note.
Yeah, I see.
How will the requirements to formally respond to each recommendation change existing practices?
One point to say again is that there's a number of factors in the contracting process, funding realities that may impact the implementation of any of their recommendations from the youth board or from really anybody. Generally, this bill would codify the existing practice, and we're happy to talk about how to make that happen.
This bill will reduce the number of seats on the youth board from 28 to 18. How is the current 28-member structure functioning in practice? Have there been challenges with quorum attendance or decision making?
We're actually very pleased that youth board meetings are well attended and that achieving quorum was never an issue. We just need to ensure that we preserve DYCD's ability to manage and support the board, meeting the charter and state mandates that we have, and the ability to manage the geographical distribution of the seats. So for example, under the new bill, over half of all the seats will be distributed by borough. So that might be problematic.
Can you tell me a little bit more why that would be problematic?
So we always want to make sure that we have enough members on the board to meet quorum. And one concern is between the interplay between the different requirements, and so that reducing the number of members could make it challenging enough that we have at least 2 members from each borough. But we are actually pleased to say we have representation from all 5 boroughs.
And just some of it too is like, I know when we were thinking about putting this bill together, some of it was 28 seemed like a lot of trying to get people on the same page. So trying to reduce it so that there can be more robust conversations and move things along. And so that was like kind of the spirit and intent of moving the bill.
Absolutely, and we do see the benefit of it.
But I can see how there can be concerns around the geographical location. But I feel like we're a city of millions of people. I think we can find 2 people from each borough. No. Do you believe reducing the board to 18 will improve efficiency or engagement? Why or why not?
We actually do see the benefit, but again, we just have the question about making quorum if it's fewer people. But we could explore that with you and the committee staff.
The law requires that participates at least 3 of the members on the youth board shall be between the ages of 16 and 24. How does DYC currently recruit and support those members?
Sure, absolutely. We're very proud that we have young people who offer their perspectives, which have been really beneficial to the board and actually to DYCD itself. And we actually appreciated the bill that you passed to codify this. So we actually use our network of programs and other members of community organizations. I'm going to ask Sarah to sort of talk a little bit about our youth leadership program.
Sure. Hi. Thank you. Our current group of young people that have been really active in the youth board came to us through My Brother's Sister Keeper Youth Council, which is a youth leadership program. And then since then, some of them also became involved in the NYC Youth Agenda, which is a citywide youth activism program. And that is where some of our younger members came from. I believe we also have a member or 2 who came in as a young person appointed by the city council.
Yes. Currently, there's no term limits for the members on the youth board. This bill would impose a 1-term limit, which would the term limits lasting 4 years with the option to renewal for an additional term. Does the department have any feedback on the duration of term limits for the youth board?
Absolutely. We recognize that term limits can benefit the board with new perspectives. We would welcome a discussion about how long the term should be to make sure we have continuity and expertise on the board and strike the balance between bringing in new people while preserving institutional knowledge.
Do you want to tell me the recommendation now of what you guys were thinking around the term limits?
We would probably play a little bit with the term limits, maybe a little bit longer.
Have it like staggered or?
Staggered might be an option, yes.
Okay, well, let's note that. I think we can work on that. That sounds like it makes sense. Are there any technical or implementation concerns for DYCD has for this current bill?
We currently have a number of well-qualified members who offer their experiences and backgrounds and institutional knowledge, which may be lost. And I'm going to point out, Councilmember Avila has actually served as the chair of the youth board, and she was terrific. So how do we select which ones have to step down? So perhaps, like we said earlier, there could be a phase-in period or like
staggered term limits
or holdover language that could be helpful here.
Okay. That seems like something. Deputy Speaker, do you have any questions? Okay. I don't have any more questions. All right, well. supposed to read something. Hold on, I'm turning my. At this time, we don't have any more questions for DY City. Thank you guys for coming in today.
Thank
We
you,
really
Madam
appreciate
Chair
it. Appreciate it.
and Deputy Speaker. Good to see
Thank you very much.
That concludes the in-person portion for the public test. Oh, wait, no. Oh, no, that's not what I'm supposed to read. Hold on. Sorry. Excuse me. Sorry. I now open the hearing for public testimony. I remind members of the public this is a formal government proceeding and decorum shall always be observed. As members of the public shall remain silent at all times, the witness table is reserved for people who wish to testify. No video recordings or photography is allowed from the witness table. Members of the public may not present audio or video recordings as testimony, but they may submit transcripts of such recordings to the Sergeant at Arms at the conclusion of the hearing. If you wish to speak at today's hearing, please fill out an appearance card with the Sergeant at Arms and wait to be recognized. When recognized, you will have 2 minutes to speak on today's topic. Introduction 448-2026 in relation to the structure of the responsibilities of the Youth Board. If you have written testimony or additional statements you wish to submit for the record, please provide a copy of that testimony to the Sergeant at Arms. I would like to call the first panel. Oh. We have one person here, and that is Josh Mosby. Come on.
Good afternoon, council member. My name is Josh Mosby, and I am coordinating a sexual violence prevention program at Girl Vow. Girl Vow is a gender-focused mentoring nonprofit who works with girls and gender-expansive youth aged 12 to 24 who have been impacted by the juvenile justice system, foster care, and poverty. Our youth have access to life coaching, and we've had over 1,540 participants in the last year. In our work, we have seen firsthand how big of an issue interpersonal and sexual violence is in our participants' lives. And so we've been expanding our work to address these issues prevalent in the South Bronx, specifically Hunts Point, Patterson, Mott Haven, and Grand Concourse. A central point to Girl Vow is centering youth voices and having them lead and be a part of the work and the solutions that are created for them. We try to say nothing with them, nothing for them without them. And we've been speaking with youth in the Bronx about their issues. We found the main themes that are affecting their lives are acceptance of violence as a daily reality. This was brought up several times in the interviews that we held with youth. This led us to try to create our own youth advisory board that is led by youth. We have reached 8 people that meet twice a month. They're paid stipends. And we've seen much success of how youth voices, when centered, can be very, very effective towards solutions. I just wanted to reiterate how important it is to keep youth voices at the center of creating solutions that are supposed to affect them. I do. Okay. I think that the more youth voices that are prevalent and centered in the work is very important towards any initiatives. And I just came here to make this clear and to say that we have access to youth who are willing to speak and participate, and we would love to assist in any way to make this board successful. Okay, thank you.
Well, yeah, thank you for being here. I know Girl Val. I just saw Dawn. How you doing? And I know of the great work that you guys do, and we would love to continue to work not only with seeing if there is space on the youth board for someone you might have to nominate or anything like that, and also we have a youth advisory board in my office as well. So, happy to see Dawn. Happy to see you. Welcome to the team, and thank you for coming to center young people's voices because it is important, and that's something that I work really hard to make sure that we're bringing young people in all spaces. So thank you, and we'll continue to work together. Okay. That concludes the in-person portion of our public testimony. We now move to remote testimony. If you are testifying remotely, please listen for your name to be called. Once your name is called, a member of the staff will unmute you. You may start your testimony once the Sergeant of Arms sets the clock and cue you to begin. We have no one on Zoom. The following witnesses were assigned. Okay, hold on. Listen. If there's anyone else present in the room who has not had the opportunity to testify but wish to do so, please raise your hand. Seeing no one else who wishes to testify, I now adjourn this hearing. Thank you all for being here today.